All right, these are really interesting and challenging times, whichever way you look at it. But the truth is, if you hold on, the dark times and days will become history right before our eyes, Justin.
Very, very true. Okay, it is now time to bring our first good news as we attempt to address the evil inherent in mental health and how we can manage it. Well, to help us is Dr. Imafidon Agbonilr, Chief Consultant Psychologist and MD CEO, Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Benin, Edo State. So good to have you join us this morning, Doctor.
Hello, Dr. Imafidon. Good morning. We're grateful for the time. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, first things first, when we say mental health, what exactly are we talking about?
Well, mental health is part of the overall health that we talk about. So if you look at the definition of health by the WHO, mental health is part of it, which suggests that if your mental health is not good, then you don't have a good health. So mental health is a state of well-being which suggests that you can relate with people, you can communicate, your feelings, your actions are within what is acceptable in the larger society as being normal or okay. So when somebody is said to be mentally ill, then you have a problem with the way he thinks, the way he behaves, and the way he feels. And you know, the triad is you think, you feel, and then you behave. So which suggests that your thinking, if it's disordered, will invariably affect your emotions, which will also affect your actions. And your actions is what determines your behavior. Your behavior, if it is sustained, eventually becomes your habits and then your character or personality. So what it means, therefore, is that when you have a problem with someone's mental health, linked to mental illness, it often affects the behavior, the thinking processes, and the feelings. And so that is what eventually cascades into all the myriad of signs and symptoms of what we see on the streets. Okay. So mental health is a complete health. Okay. Without mental health, you can't a good health.
All right, Doctor, I still need to get a clarification there, because back here at home, Lagos and of course most homes, when most people talk about mental health, they seem to think that you are having issues with your sanity, or that you need to see a psychiatrist. But does it really entail that you are not really sane, or you've lost it somehow, Doctor?
But you're not really what I think at that. Can you repeat your question, please?
Okay, what I said was, when we talk about mental health, to some people it is about sanity or insanity, as it is, as if you're losing touch with reality. Is that really the case?
Oh, yes. If someone has a mental illness, especially the one we call psychotic illnesses, it suggests that you have lost touch with reality and you cannot differentiate between reality and fantasy. And so that is why you hear that they hear voices others cannot hear, they see things others cannot see, and they tend to have beliefs that may not be correct, but even in the presence of evidence to the contrary, they hold on to it strongly. So in other words, the summary is what you said. They lose touch with reality. They can't differentiate between reality and what is real and what isn't real. And that is the hallmark of psychosis. Okay.
All right. In the times that we're in, some people allude that because of the challenges, mental health is on the increase. Is this true? And what are the predisposing factors that you have noticed as a professional in this field?
Yeah, the incidence of mental illness is increasing for reasons that may not be far-fetched, where there are two issues here. Number one, the awareness is there now, so they are more likely to present. You know what I mean? What I mean is, in the past, when people have mental illness, they may not present, people won't bring them forward because of the issues of stigma and even lack of awareness. They just say it's a spiritual thing, so they take them to either a traditional spiritual home or a church, or, that is one side of it. So now the awareness is there, so people are coming forward with this people with mental illness. So they are more likely to present, which will lead to a seeming increase in the number. That's one. Two, if you look at the happenings in the country in recent times, you see that we have a lot of problems: social problems, psychological problems, physical problems. The rate of unemployment is sky high. There is a lot of violence in the country: killings, kidnappings, robberies, and then there's a lot of social pressure. So one thing that leads to mental ill health is sustained stress. Stress, we all go through stress from time to time. However, when it is sustained, it leads to decompensation. And there are several hormones, chemicals, neurotransmitters in the body that will be continuously soaring in the system, which will cause damage and eventually lead to mental illness. So it is not far-fetched, therefore why we may be having an increase in the cases of mental illness. And another very common reason, perhaps is, which we see all the time at the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital here in Benin, is the use of drugs, illicit substances. It's so prevalent now. Many young people believe that using is like a trendy thing. It makes you trendy, and they call it all sorts of things now. Loud, Colorado, they have all sorts of nicknames. And drug abuse is one thing that can make a vulnerable person break down to mental illness and make them even more vulnerable if they were not already. Now, your question was in two parts. The first one, you asked me about whether there's an increase or the increase is noticed in my center. Yes, of course. We have
we're losing you.
Losing audio.
We're losing you, doctor.
Yes, we
are you still there? We're losing you. You know, he talked about the increase, in the young people. Okay, we can hear you.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, for the other part, you talked about what are the predisposing factors that lead to mental illness. There are several. Mental illness really is, these are conditions that you have risk factors, and it's an interplay of risk factors, which is a combination of your genetics, your biological makeup, and environmental influences. Okay. For example, you see, there are people who, if they have family history, they are more likely, perhaps, to break down when the other factors from the environment act upon them. Okay. Let me give an example. If you have two individuals, one of them has, let's say, as someone, a brother, an uncle, or a father, a mother who has a mental illness, and another who doesn't, and then they are acted upon by a stressful factor, maybe experienced a robbery, or they were kidnapped, they were kept for a week, brutalized. Okay. The one who has a familiar a relation with it may be more at risk to break down, but it is not absolute. All right. It just express these predisposing factors. In other words, the summary is this: what you inherit is a vulnerability and not the illness. Let me repeat that, because people ask us that question all the time. Oh, is it inheritable? What you inherit is not necessarily the illness, but the vulnerability to the illness, which means you may have inherited the vulnerability, which is maybe someone in the family had it, so you are more at risk than those whose family member didn't have it. But you may never have it in your life, even if you are exposed to stressors. Whereas another person whose family members never had it, exposed to stressors, may break down. So what it means is that the family history makes you more at risk, but doesn't necessarily give you the illness. Okay. I hope.
All right, doctor. Okay, doctor. When you talked about young people abusing different illicit drugs, you talked about Colorado, Loud, which is they're not like the order of the day, and most of them believe that it is some sort of support that they can fall back on because of the issues they are going through. They don't have who to turn to, and they feel that that's just another way to just go and forget about all of the issues that they are going through. So my question right now is that when the support system that you think you have does not really help you, what do you do? Where can you fall to or fall back
Where
on?
can we find help? And how easy is it?
We are here. We are here to help. We are here to help. Anyways, but number one, let's start from the community level. I mean, if somebody is undergoing stress or going through tough times, it's talk to family members, talk to friends, express, open up to them. It's good to, sometimes when you talk, you ventilate. Okay, it's like when you have a boiling kettle. When the kettle is boiling, then begins the steam and the water begins to go over the top. But when you take off the lid, what happens? It simmers down, it calms down. That's exactly what happens to you too. So it's like you're boiling psychologically. And if you don't take off the lid, you blow up. Now, when it blows up, you are now decompensating to mental illness. So it's good to take off the lid by ventilating, by talking to people. The process, that talking alone helps. However, there are conditions that may not be amenable to just talking. So you need to see an expert. That's when you talk to us. But people have this feeling that, if I talk to a psychiatrist, it means I'm mad. No, you are not. And mad is not in our textbook anyway. We just have illnesses just like diabetes, just like hypertension, mental illness and illness. There are different types. In any case, most mental illnesses are not psychotic mental illnesses. They are just what we used to call in those days neurotic illnesses. Which involves anxiety disorders, some, stress, acute stress disorders, and some other things like that. And then you have some people who go through trauma, either they were involved in a car accident or a robbery, or they were brutalized. You can have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. You can have, so these things are amenable to treatment, not necessarily pharmacotherapy. We don't need to give you drugs. There is what we call CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. There are other types of psychological therapies that can be, introduced to help these individuals. And then after some sessions, they get much better and they're okay. So it's not necessarily because somebody is mad or psychotic. That's why it's in a psychiatrist. And then we're a team anyway. We have in our team, we have the mental health nurses, we have the psychiatrists, we have the clinical psychologists, we have the mental health social workers, and the like. So depending on the condition. And that brings me to, I do not know whether I answered that question completely when you talked about what.
Yeah, we have like a minute. We have like a minute, Doctor, to wind up the segment. Okay. So my final question for you is mental health, is it curable? Can we find a lasting help?
There are conditions that are curable. That many may not be curable but treatable, just like diabetes, just like hypertension. They are not curable, most of them. You treat them. So that's what we tell people. But it depends. If it is due to trauma, because we didn't really go to details of the causes. If it's due to, we had a patient who was very okay, an executive who had a car accident and then had trauma to the head. And then after that, he had a psychotic condition. So if, for example, somebody had a tumor in the brain and then you open up and take out the tumor, he's okay, it's cured. If somebody was using drugs and it's drug-induced, stopping the drugs, in many cases, may also cure the person, but it's drug-induced. So there are different types. But if it's some other chronic type, like schizophrenia and some other ones, you just need to treat them, and they can live a fairly normal life.
Okay. On that note, we'd like to say thank you so much, Doctor. I know we have so many triggers all around us, and the dangers of falling victim, is why we're here, to equip our viewers with information, and that you have helped us with today. And we say a very big thank you for your time.
Many thanks once again, Dr. Agbonilr.
My pleasure.
Thank you, and have a lovely weekend. All right, so after the break, we shall continue to bring answers to your many questions as they relate to prostate enlargement and cancer. Now, what is special about men who are above 40 years? If you stay with us, as we are about to meet someone who is willing to share his story And also we will be bringing a urologist who will look at the medical aspect of all of this. It's still Today with John and Helen, live on Plus TV. Please don't go away.